Ну что, коллеги, я предлагаю...
Dear colleagues, shall we start our session? We have a very interesting subject on city infrastructure and construction. I will now introduce our panelists. We have discussed it briefly with them in the breaks, so we will certainly stick to the declared subject. We will talk about the infrastructure and also the warehouses. This company is represented by Christopher. We will also talk about real estate management. It's a company represented by Oleg Kuznetsov. It's called MATORIN. Certainly, all these areas are related to both infrastructure and construction. But taking into account that this is a business congress, we will ask our participants how they want to manage their business in Russia, what ideas they have, and both these things are extremely interesting to me. I would request Christopher and Andrey to actively participate in this discussion. So we have already had some debates in the breaks. Both the questions are welcome, the questions to each other and from the floor. Please show some sign to me. Just indicate that you want to ask a question, and I will come up to you and help you to address a speaker. We have time until 7 p.m., though, frankly speaking, the subject is so interesting, and I think I will be unable to stop at the required time. And because this is an endless subject, well, consultants never stop. I agree with you. So, as people say, some people move fast, and it takes some people long to start their horse, but it's difficult for them to stop. And let us start with Christopher. Christopher is the founder of a Samosklad company, which means a self-service warehouse. So evidently, this is a warehouse, which is still unusual. I would request Christopher to describe his business. What is it like? Why did you decide to start this business in Russia? Can you hear me well? Can you hear me okay? Yes. First of all, thank you so much for coming here to meet us. And second, I'm not from Russia. I'm from Scotland, but you speak good Russian. And if you can't follow me, I will try to speak slower or more distinctly. We created business which is called Samosklad. Samosklad is something like a self-service warehouse. It means that our business is storage at warehouses. It's something like retail business. Yes, indeed, this is a self-service warehouse. So the title is self-explanatory. We intended to find a name reflecting the concept of our business. The word sklad is well known to all Russians. Everyone knows what sklad is, which is a warehouse. Well, as a person working for the real estate sector, I have certain association with the word sklad or a warehouse. I can imagine thousands of containers and huge premises of many square kilometers. Well, I have a question to you too. There are too many garages in Moscow. What do people store there? They store old things. They store the components, for instance, the hooves and covers of their cars, and other things like that. I think mainly it's the business of men, and I know that most of men store things, any things, like tools, for instance, instruments, in their warehouse, but this is not a place for a car. So, who are our clients? 85% of the clients are natural people, while the rest 15% is legal entities. They need to store things somewhere during the renovation or repairs of their apartments or country houses. Russian winters are extremely cold and summers are very hot. That's why people have too many place-consuming winter clothing, and they are unlikely, they are really reluctant to store it somewhere in summer. Also, people have many things. They have some sports equipment and extra clothing and so on. A year ago, there was a terrible situation in London when some corpse was found in one storage place. Yes, if you use some banking safes, this may not be secure enough, or sometimes it's too expensive. And the people are reluctant to use the services of banks. Sometimes people claim that they want to store nothing illegal. However, if we can't control everything, but if you checked, you would discover some illegal things there. Oh, and when you sign an agreement with a bank, you receive a PIN code, and we can't control everyone. They may open their safe whenever they want, even in the night. And so that's why we offer the services of self-storage. Well, is it expensive? What if I want to store my old sofa somewhere? It's relatively inexpensive. Our warehouse is equipped with fire safety, anti-fire facilities, a video camera, and some other devices, a surveillance camera too. Certainly, our services are more expensive than free garages, but we are still trying to make our service accessible to Russian people. We would like to have some modest but profitable building and satisfy all our clients. Christopher, let's compare in terms of demand. What about the demand for this business in the UK and in Russia? I think that the people in the UK use these type of services more often. What about Russia? They are not used yet. There is big difference indeed between the UK approach and the approach of Russian people. As to the business, well, it was created 25 years ago. There are 1,200 McDonald's stores. Let me quote this figure. While our company in the UK was 1,200 points of sale throughout the UK. And if you may ask any passerby in the street, what's individual storage or individual storage services? Many people are unaware of that, and only one person out of 100 knows what it is about. Similarly, it's millions of people, and the population of London is 15 million people, and the population of Moscow is huge. There is lots of space for growth, and we really need to develop this business. I agree with Mr. Sobyanin, the mayor of Moscow. I think he is taking a good care of Moscow now. He has taken away many empty garages. He constructs new roads. He does all that very actively. Therefore, I think there's room for growth. Mr. Sobyanin's office is not far from here. So possibly Mr. Sobyanin supports Christopher in his business. I have been here in Russia for 10 years. Okay, you've mentioned McDonald's. Let me address another question to you. In early 90s, the first McDonald's stores opened. The first one was in Pushkinskaya Square, and some managers declared that they were going to open more. And people said, we don't need that more. However, now we had hundreds of McDonald's in Moscow. What are the prospects? Do you have some prospects? How many offices are you going to open? Approximately. Could you give us a rough figure? Well, there are problems in Russia, but certainly we aim to develop this business. It needs to grow. And in order to do that, we need good buildings, not something like a neglected empty building, but really it's too expensive to construct a new building. It requires a huge investment. And if we buy a land lot, we could, for instance, in the UK, we can do everything within 6 months, construct a new building and connect to the power supply, connect this building to gas supply, and so on. That's why, but the time frameworks in Russia are different. That's why we're planning to open 25 offices in 5 years. The growth here is slower. We want to have good premises that will be cozy but still accessible and affordable. Let's compare our business to Azbuk of Kursa, which is translated as the ABC of taste, a posh chain of a food supermarket. This is an expensive chain, and we certainly plan to develop our business, but the rate of development will never reach the rate of development in London. I understand there are some limits, there are some physical restrictions, and there are some problems with the coordinating documents, which is too slow. But how about the demand itself? Is it going to be as much as in the UK? Do you mean the demand of clients and the increase of our clientele? I have just told you that in principle the people have no place to store their things. On the one hand, there are Stalin buildings with lots of space. For instance, there are some shelves under the ceiling in Stalin-type buildings. But let's take new buildings or European-style apartments. They have no storage places. And certainly there are basements, but they are meant for cars only. Therefore, we invest into this business, and we can predict that the growth will be rapid. And I hope, well, we already have good performance indicator. Our business has doubled in 1 year. But what about doing business? Let's get away from the market? What about creating a company and coordination and accounting? Did you do well? Did you manage to overcome problems? I think we should address these questions to Andrey, not really me. As to founding this business, whether this was difficult or not, well, it's hard to say. Russia has a different taxation and accounting reporting system. The UK has the common law, while Russia has the civil law. It's a different set of rules. And let me draw an analogy. For instance, there's a company in the UK with 28 rooms. However, they only have one accountant working 3 or 4 days a week. While here we have about 10 accountants, and our office is much smaller. And as also Russian companies have a very big document flow. And it takes me 3 or 4 hours to sign all needed documents. Evidently, Russia logs too much forest, while you have too much paper. And any Russian company needs a lawyer or even a legal department. This is required to register a new company or a new unit, to open a new account and settle other issues. Technically, it's not difficult, however. The most difficult task for any new business is getting a loan. Sorry for comparing this comparison again. We had a building, we owned it, and we had a tenant. It was 3 years ago, and we were unable to get a loan in Russia because of that situation. The same situation persists. Our business is profitable. We have a positive balance sheet. However, we are unable to get a loan. And this is because of the situation with the building. That's because we have a tenant. They required a pledge. And possibly only huge companies like Gazprom or Gazpromneft can get loans, while medium enterprises have problems with that. I have read so much about support to SMBs, but in fact, this is impossible. I have read Russian papers like Vedomosti and many others. They mentioned many support programs, the programs of loans, but I can't understand what companies receive loans. Well, we learned during the 2000s that the most profitable business is construction, and many managed to get loans without any form of securitization, like a collateral or a pledge. We did not. Sometimes the banks did not explain their position or did not make any comments. I feel that our banks can't really work with the small or loans or medium loans and the loans to SMBs. It doesn't work as fast and efficiently as in the West, where you have just to fill out an application and you get your money in 5 minutes. This is a very difficult and time-consuming procedure in Russia, and you have to picture yourself as a prosperous company. And let's get back to the banks. They, in their turn, are very unwilling to give loans to SMBs. But however, this is profitable to them because they could survive on this small earnings and small fees for the loans. Another direction of our activity is residential real estate. Our business is highly competitive. Companies compete for big clients. However, they never compete for small clients. Moreover, sometimes small companies are unaware of our business.
When we tell them about what we are doing, they get surprised because they have to hire engineer and plumber. Maybe you could tell us more about what you're doing. This is a very simple thing. There is no secret about it. You all use these services. If you live in high-rise buildings, then you use these services. The name is, it's a difficult name in Russian, ЖКХ, utility services. Operating companies, they get criticized a lot traditionally. We work with residential and non-residential premises. We started with non-residential buildings and then we moved to the second sector as well. We think that this is a very complicated sector. Penetration is not very high in Russia. And only 25% of owners of non-residential businesses, non-residential owners use our services. Either they maintain their buildings themselves. There is also some support from state authorities. Only a few owners of real estate use independent operators. Now, quality of services is very low. Only 50% of those who use our services, services of independent operators, are satisfied with the service quality. Okay, what does the maintenance of real estate include? Technical support. If we own a building, we want everything to be fixed, everything be in order, and it shouldn't take much time and shouldn't generate headache for us. We help warehouses, large office spaces. We are responsible to owners and to public authorities and different players of this market, providing the said services. This business is not very trendy, it's not something very new, but there are a lot of new ideas which can be implemented. And this can be applied to any type of business. The strategy of our company is to deal only with socially significant sectors. Now we could be proud of the results of our work. We don't have very high penetration. We are not well presented in the regions, but we want to go there. What kind of new principles are we talking about? The topic of this session is city infrastructure, construction. I think that every modern business should be like the infrastructure for society. It shouldn't be an independent entity. It shouldn't be an entity for generating revenue, for fulfilling interests of its founders. We should focus on interests of society. It's not a good idea now to promote the idea of becoming the most profitable, the richest company, because employees will not be really motivated to go forward. Our motto is to create the new face of the industry. There are a lot of problems, and you can join us. This is a great incentive per personnel. We are used to criticizing the youth, but we have a lot of young people working for us. I'm proud of this generation. They're very talented. They need to have room for development. They can now make mistakes, but then in the future they will be able to create a lot of useful things drawing on these mistakes. They are very enthusiastic, and I'm very happy to work with them. Now, several words about the business of Christopher. We work a lot with the construction industry. We often hear that modern construction premises are built according to new standards. Khrushchev era buildings poorly built, but we don't have such apartments like in Japan, 15, 18 square meters. But I think in the future we'll be developing in this direction. It's the 21st century, but we still have a lot of problem with housing. Not many people can afford to buy an apartment, and a lot of people are forced to look for smaller apartments. And I think it could help the business of Chris, because such small apartments will not have any storage places. I'm not talking about ceiling cabinets. I have a question to both panelists. Andrey is talking about housing. From the viewpoint of the real estate management, the operating company has to deal with hundreds of individuals, thousands, tens of thousands. How does this work from the technical point of view? So you're saying you are managing residential housing. I'm your potential customer. I have an apartment myself. So could you please explain the scheme of your work? There is a problem in our industry. The problem is obvious. 80% of all the issues which are important for the population is the maintenance of buildings. This is not the matter of technical difficulties. Buildings are very simply built. Sometimes modern storage facilities are built up to the better standards. They are better equipped. So, for example, there is one house, 100 owners, and everyone has an apartment. And actually, according to the law, all these little apartments, different owned by different owners, are not unified into one legal entity. This is a big problem. Those who own those apartments, they don't feel like the unified organisms. This was my next question to you. The law in your area is obscure. That's why it's difficult for us to cooperate. Sometimes I get questions from the population, and they want me to share my experience. I'm ready to share experience. The more people, soulmates we have in our industry, the better, because now there are a lot of restrictions in the industry. Let's look at Moscow. In Moscow, the technical condition of buildings is not bad. It's not actually that poor as we sometimes read in the papers, but there are some problems in communication between the operating company and its clients. You need to set the communication process correctly. If you want to renovate something in houses, you should start not from the ceilings and walls. You should start from mindsets. There are three factors which lead to different problems. First of all, people are not united despite the fact that they live in one house. There are different ages, social strata. Some people own, some people rent out the apartments. You are talking about differences in requirements from tenants. No, I'm talking about problems in mindsets. So first of all, people don't feel that they live together, that they are one organism. Some people are forced to live in this house. Some people choose this specific house. There are a lot of differences. That's why the operating company can't get some unified requirements and can't represent interests of the owners because they all want different things. Secondly, it's not illiteracy, but I would say insufficient technical knowledge and legal knowledge. It's not that difficult to understand the legal matters related to your housing, because usually an apartment is your main asset in life. That's what we are taught from childhood. My father used to have a garage, and him and his friends used to spend hours and hours fixing the car. Everyone in the Soviet Union knew every single part in their car. So they learned how to fix any problems with the car, but they didn't learn how to fix some legal matters related to housing. Journalists don't help because they constantly inform the audience about problems. Journalists talk too much about problems and criminals, and it's difficult to find an honest person working in this sphere. If you're trying to understand why people are working in this area, it's very difficult to understand the true reasons. Sometimes they're trying to say that they are doing social good, and they can't really answer this very simple question. This is a simple business. In my opinion, this is very complex, and you're trying to say the opposite. As I understand it, there are a lot of apartments in one building. There are people who are richer, those who are poorer. Everyone has to pay the same tariffs. Somebody wants to have more hot water and somebody wants more cold water. Expectations are different. Maintenance of the landing requires a lot of investment, and people have different income. We hear a lot of myths about your industry. Can we believe them? Can we believe what we read in the paper? We are doing what the tenants are asking us to do. For example, if I talk to Chris and explain him that he has problems in his storage, of course I'll ask him, do you trust my opinion? I'll give him the list of problems in his storage facilities. I'll propose to solve them. But then there will be the general meeting of different owners. There will be thousands of different opinions. It will be difficult for me to persuade them all that the renovation is needed. Of course, this business has not very high margins. There are some business models, very interesting ones, which would improve the margins here. Usually, individuals don't think that operating companies should have high income, but you need to think about ways to earn. We are expanding our portfolio because we want to expand our trading floor, and then we'll be able to sell additional services. We will be acting like an operator of different services. This is right now just an idea. Average Russian family spends 10 to 15% of income on utility, and 45% is spent on some consumer needs related to housing. For example, what do you mean? I'm talking about food, repair of domestic appliances, antiviruses for laptops, everything related to your household. They're not exotic services, but there are a lot of them. We could go into this market. The managing companies should provide such services. If it's trusted, then citizens will be able to order such type of services through the operating company. We are trying to identify primary needs of citizens. For example, 1,000 square meters under management. And we know that in these premises there are people who need their washing machine to be fixed. We find the relevant operator, we monitor the market, we find the average price for such service, we hold a tender, we negotiate lower prices because we provide the service provider with large volume of demand. They pay us 3% of royalty. We provide good service to the tenants. We can also take payments through the utility receipts. And are partners interested? Do they like these ideas? Actually, honestly speaking, they still don't buy it. They don't buy it yet. We need a well-established tradition here. They don't believe that we are honest proposing them something like that. We are preparing to launch this project in the future. It's been preliminary announced already. Chris, Andrey gave a very good description of the work of the operating company, a lot of possibilities for cooperation, but usually owners and users have a lot of questions, a lot of queries. What's your experience of working with the operating company? First of all, I highly respect Andrey and his company because he is working with residential houses. I understand just one building has 100 owners, those who live in the apartments, and there are a lot of differences of opinion. I understand that his business is extremely complex. Of course, our business is different. We are dealing with commercial real estate. And in my opinion, it's different. But we have the same clients, but we see two different topics. So on the one hand, we are honest. On the other hand, we have the business. We work like a hotel. We have 500 premises within one warehouse. We have 500 clients. and every client has his own room. And to make all of them happy, it's challenging because every client should feel care and attention. Of course, we get complaints. What are the complaints about? Okay, you bring your sofa and close the door. What else? What else do they need? For example, in London, people are very impatient. One minor problem, no. Light in the room or access is blocked because they can't remember their PIN code. They are dissatisfied. We smile, we hear, we are listening to them very carefully. People are trained to provide good customer service. This is very important for us. And we are also owners of the house. And our operating company for this warehouse on Nagatinskaya Street in Moscow, that's a very big trading mall. We used to have manufacturing facility there. Tanks were manufactured, and the building was transformed for warehouses. And now there are a lot of storage facilities. We bought a part of it. The managing company is managing this whole building. They are supposed to clean the territory, disinfect the businesses. They provide security guards, but they are not doing their job. They do nothing. There are some good security guards, and we pay them, and we have to pay a lot for this agreement, maintenance agreement, but they want no cleaning at all. The facade hasn't been cleaned. We actually had the problem of rats in the building. We want to pay and get something in return. You are saying that you are listening to your clients and you're trying to be flexible. Probably we are simply were unlucky. And this operating company is not flexible, is not friendly. They're not trying to negotiate. They don't promise improvements. Do you want possibly to hold a tender and select Andrey's company? There are a lot of good operating companies. It shouldn't be me. We are sitting here next to you. You could, of course, address us. No, we don't want to argue. It would be unrealistic to change a company because there are a lot of tenants. Total area is 40,000 square meters. This business has high potential. Building maintenance. As I feel it, I'm renting my apartment, and it seems to me, of course, I don't want to offend somebody, but work is specific. A lot can be improved. I'm comparing the services with the UK, with Scotland, my native country. System is different. Maybe there is more trust. But here I'm not absolutely happy. You have issues about the quality of service, not the list of services. Yes, rates and quality are not coincided. So Moscow is one of the most expensive cities in the world. For example, it's in the same list as Hong Kong, Tokyo, London. Moscow is one of top 3 most expensive cities in the world in all the segments, in retail, in hotels. but unfortunately services are not in line with the price. We pay a lot for 1 square meter rent in this apartment. And those people who are not Slavs, they don't have education, they come here, they don't know what it means to clean the territory. So they hear you should clean, but they don't quite understand. So the prices as for are very high. It looks like you have a lot concerns. Yeah, I understand you very well, and I could explain why this happens. I assure that in your business you spend a lot of time on methodology of your business. You know how to smile, you know how to talk to your clients. This is very important. Our business is not well developed, and frequently we know that there are monopoly players in the market, and it's difficult to change them, to shift them. They are not motivated to improve because they hold the monopoly. They hire their relatives simply to pay them salary. They're not motivated to control, to improve. I think we lack balance here. There are people who want to earn today, and there are other people who don't want to pay for services. Some people who have an apartment, they have money, they are wealthy people, but they complain. Andrey services are too expensive. They are not in line with the reality. So there is no balance. This is a new market. It's just 20 years old. It's like the washing machine. In 50 years, we'll understand how the process is structured. We need to see the generation change. And also, we say that only during the third generation, the procedure will be well set. Andrey's company is doing a good thing, but probably right now, the market doesn't allow him to work to the best standards. What are your relations with the other companies who used to hold the monopoly, with other companies who are also trying to provide high quality services, who are socially responsible? We are focused on housing because in this segment quality is important.
And we know that there are no kickbacks here, facilitation fees or bribes. And how can you prove it? If there are 5 companies, how will you choose? What are the grounds? This market is non-competitive. And let's take independent companies, for instance. There are very few in Moscow, in total less than 1% of all other companies, and the rest are state-owned enterprises or nearly state-owned. This happens when state officials set up some companies, private companies. For instance, they can easily be recognized because all buildings are located in the same district. The company seems very transparent and active, and the advertising is proper. However, they all turn to be in the same district. I think there is no competition here. However, there is some fight between companies, and one company would not let others into its district. The commercial sector is different. I know many operators, and I think some companies have made a big breakthrough. Christopher has spoken about that. And they're not so numerous. There are few owners that understand our services well and are ready for future changes. The changes really happen, but our colleagues should not really focus on newly built blocks. They should rather look at the existing housing assets. I think we need to extend our market, and I know that there are only 15 or 20 actively working companies. The number is insufficient, and we need about 100 operators of this type. So I think the competition is small. I have one question to both Christopher and Andrey. How do you promote your services? Clearly, this is marketing, but this is your target audience here is natural persons. Probably the ads in magazines work, but they are not efficient enough. It's especially important for Andrey, who needs to persuade not just one person, one resident of a building, but all residents of a particular building. How can you really reach your target audience? And then I have the same question to Christopher. Well, we have been in this segment for almost 10 years. We have tried all possible ways. This is difficult too, but what we need is to brief people often on the services that we offer, to put forward some interesting ideas and solutions, and also to raise awareness. PR promotion should be free, because commercial advertising services are too expensive and they do not work efficiently, and the people's radio works much better. And one of our employees, for instance, created his own blog in internet. He aimed to place his ideas on real estate management. However, later on it changed, and we discussed some ideas, and it was an indirect form of advertising. Talking about bona fide competition, I think it works better as a mouthpipe, and we just need people briefing each other. That's the most efficient way. Corruption now is very high, so we should try to withstand it. Christopher, and what's the situation in your sector? Well, I know one term. There's a Russian term which is called sarafanное radio, meaning the radio of people briefing each other. So advertising costs and time costs too. Our business is different from Andrei's business. Our clients are very important, and that's why we try to train our managers to talk to clients by phone or in person. And we have recommendations for clients. That's why this People's Radio perfectly works. We have not paid anything through internet, through Yandex, Google, or anything else. We have not spent any money at all on internet advertising. We have one building which is located at the crossing of two favorably located streets. These are good quality motorways, and thousands of cars pass by. This is the building of our warehouse. There used to be a banner there, and so it's the crossing of three motorways. The word banner, which is shit in Russian, sounds a bit ambiguous. Nevertheless, let's get back to the banner. So it cost 11,000 ruble per month. It wasn't too expensive. And when we took this building and created the warehouse, we installed a poster, a sign of our warehouse, and it cost 17,000 rubles. I remember this figure because I was surprised. And we also were allowed to install a banner. It all cost 17,000 rubles. Right now, we're trying to develop the company and develop our brand. So certainly we use Yandex, Google a bit. Well, it costs peanuts. It's 10,000 or 11,000 rubles per month. You should also try to inform people, to say that your business exists. Before our discussion, I visited Christopher's website. I knew about this concept, but I didn't know that this company really exists in Moscow. There is some, well, if we have very good performance, and the clients normally get to know about our business from each other. It's over 30% of all our clients. They make sure that they can trust us, and also they like the fact that we're a British company, and they like that all our managers are nice to them. Let's recall this Azbuka Vkusa chain food store and some other restaurant and some other places. So smiling to a client is very important, and being nice with a client is also important because it's not so typical of Russian companies. We pay lots of attention to the behavior of managers. We try to train them. They get experience. Yes, you are absolutely right. I also try to educate my personnel. We are not only after money, but we are also after the results of our work. We try to follow a creative approach in work, and we never deceive anyone. We don't want to deceive anyone. Yes, I have the same approach. We both try to invest money which is relevant for tomorrow. We are not only after money for today, but rather we create some business for the future. I can recall a joke. Someone told me that the initial stage of collecting funds is the final stage at a time. You just gather it and then you eat it up. Do you have questions? Questions from the floor, please? Yes, please. Anyone volunteering to speak up? Please introduce yourself. I enjoyed listening to you. I agree with Andrey in many things, and I agree with you too. May I have your cards, please? If there's a question, my answer is certainly yes. There was a program, TV program, on Mnevniki districts. Do you have cleaners? Are there cleaners in your company? Are there yard cleaners in your companies too? I hear that in Mnevniki district their salaries have been raised and now the streets are extremely clean. We're not so far from the center, from Tverskaya. This may seem a sort of self-advertising. I know about the program that you have mentioned. We don't have cleaners. We outsource these services. This is a hard job. Their profitability rate is 2 or 3%. They are facing a very big competition, including the competition in prices. And when they mention some 50%, 50,000 as the salary of a cleaner, that sounds absurd. But this is a program they're trying to develop some state-owned services. While our company works in a different way. And sometimes some companies try to frighten their competitors. So I think this was a sort of advertising. Probably some cleaner somewhere really received the salary of 50,000, but I'm not sure it will be commonly done. I'm a manufacturer of telemetry systems, which means the distant collection of data. I have a question to Andrey. I'm a bit surprised by what you are telling here. This is certainly a new approach. I have some negative experience, which is a management company. I created a multi-apartment building. I have spoken to a client, and I presume that the residents will pay for maintenance. However, it turned out that the managing companies was not interested to do maintenance. They had agreements with the suppliers of gas and water. Later on, they divided the whole amount by the number of residents or apartments and got their money. I think most of managing companies follow this model. Andrey has introduced a different model. This is a new view of managing companies' business. What would you advise to do in this situation when a managing companies refuse to maintain a system which is shared property? However, and what do you do when a taxi driver refuses to drive you somewhere? You just take another taxi. Certainly, this managing company feels confident because of some circumstances. and probably they feel so free because the residents are not united, and I think this problem may be resolved if we create the associations or the associations or the unions of residents that co-share this property, in which case it will be easier for them to deal with the managing company, and they will employ a proper management company. We often try to reject the services of managing companies and make direct contracts. However, if it's impossible to get rid of them, then there may be problems. On the other hand, there is some negative practice. Many systems require maintenance services, and some devices may fail, in which case they are to be replaced, and telemetry is very important here. And there may be very negative situations. Many people do not understand why everyone needs a meter and so on. And it turns out that they are dependent on management companies. So we are really for that. We fully support it. But, and gradually, this will be our practice. We will develop proper, good traditions. We can't say that you may establish the system, a proper system, and immediately your life standards will improve. This is a gradual process. And someone today has mentioned a service contract. It means that a company invests, and then it will receive profit. So this process may never be pain-free. And unless you all want to understand this process, we will not succeed. The companies should be decent. They should not only look for a place to invest money, but they should be willing to develop. Otherwise, your decisions will hamper this process. But this is a good idea, I agree. Other questions, please? We have 2 questions left, and yet another one. We have time for that. Good afternoon. I'm Natalia from Taganrog, and I work in the real estate sector. I know well how management companies work. But let's look at this as some business. Each plumber, and we have many jokes about plumbers. He is a manager, and let's try to develop the culture of services, and they should target the quality of communications. So do you think if we work with plumbers promoting and selling their business, shall we try to improve their behavior standards? By the way, recently I received a plumber who did not walk in dirty boots, but he brought slippers with him. Well, you're right. Do you work on that? Yes, we do. Any plumber is, in a way, our front office. They're certainly on the front line.
So, for example, if they are doing things which are not expected, we will not be able to work with him. not all the plumbers come to your apartment. There are a lot of services which are done outside the apartment. You can see people's working in the lift, but you don't know what's happening in the cellar or in the basement. Of course, when somebody comes to your home, you understand what kind of level of service this is. We have to work with this. That's a very important task, similarly to the Christopher's task. We need to work with the clients because clients will be voting at the general meetings of owners. It's a very bad stereotype. Plumbers are not supposed always to be dirty and poorly dressed. We are now providing tablets to our plumbers, and sometimes they are very tech savvy. Next question. My name is Igor, Ecological Alliance, Moscow. Andrey, what are your criteria when you are selecting companies responsible for waste removal? Personally, I'm not responsible for selecting these companies. Usually this market is depends on geography, so there are specific companies working in a certain district. For us, quality and speed of service is important. Price is the first criteria, price for waste removal. And the last question. Good afternoon. My name is Yulia. It's not a question, it's more of a comment. This session is called New Business Opportunities. I think that this discussion was devoted to traditional things. In my experience, I own a property in Finland and I know how the system works in Russia. In principle, there is no difference. Of course, in Finland, the population has a lot of experience, I would say, in selecting and working with operating companies. So when the plumber comes, they look like Terminator or superhero. Every company is trying to invent new services, is trying to find new things to fix. That's the universal problem. For example, if you use services of a lawyer, the lawyer usually finds mistakes in any well-prepared contract. So, of course, I'd like to hear about some new trends, something outside this industry. Okay, if all the problems are fixed, if the territory is cleaned better, we have to think out of the box. We have to look for new directions. Thank you very much for your question. That's actually what I wanted to ask the speakers. So, what are the next steps for you outside of the traditional list of services? I think Christopher's business as such is very unusual for Russia. Our business is rather traditional. I think that we have a different model for getting income. For us, property maintenance, this is just a support service. We are providing good service, but this helps us to accumulate the portfolio. We have 1.5 million square meters of property under management. For the full start, we need 2 million. And we are going to use this platform for selling new services, a comprehensive list of services. An average household spends 15% of the budget for these utility services. Other household needs also take up 45%, and we are trying to go into these areas. We are trying to switch the revenue generation channels. If our tenants rely our services, they will be calling us and they will be asking where could we fix the washing machine, and will be provided the services, will be providing the discounts for our tenants. If the service is not provided well, he will be changed immediately. Thank you very much for this question. I was reading the name of the title, the title of this session, New Opportunities for Business. So, if you're asking me about potential for creating new businesses, for creating know-how, recently I read in one of the papers, Vedomosti or Kommersant, about the insurance market. The penetration of insurance in Russia and mortgage penetration is less than 2%. This is low. In Europe, everyone has insurance. Even my teacup, my TV at home, they are insured. And this means that in Russia you have huge potential for creating new businesses. Any country, US, South America, Japan, simply use their models. They could be applied in the Russian environment. Or you can also think of some new thing, some new business, and launch it in Russia. Russia is the largest country in the world. 160 million people. You have people who spend money. No one trusts anyone. So, for example, my wife spends money right now, spends everything she gets. Is your wife Russian? Yes, she's Russian. She doesn't have a bank account. 50% of all the cash is kept under the mattress. Do you think it's like that until now? I'm not a specialist here, but I think there are a lot of opportunities for setting up new businesses. I'm not talking about improvements of existing businesses, but there are also a lot of opportunities for new ideas. People have money, and Russians are interested in new experiences. Russians are interested in the satisfaction. There are a lot of sectors where new businesses could be established. Russia, thank you very much. This is it. Thank you very much. This is the end of our discussion. Just the very last question. Could you please say, mention one thing? What would you want to see changed in Russia so that your business could live and operate better? I would like to see improvements of the processes. I think that processes in every sphere, in lending, in accounting, are overcomplicated. I don't know who invents all those processes. This is called red tape. This is Russian know-how. I understand your laws are different from our laws because you have civil law Here, it's like in France, to buy a house in France. I don't have personal experience, but I know that's very complicated. You need to prepare a lot of documents. So I would like to see your business processes to be improved, simpler and clearer. Okay, I think we need to have more enthusiasts, or we need to believe in yourself. Some external factors are important too. I would like to have easier processes of getting a loan. Our environment is very new. New Russia is just 25 years old. We'll have the new generation which was born in Russia, not in the Soviet Union. I think this will bring a lot of changes. We need trust in the society. Word of mouth is very important. We don't believe in agreements, don't believe in promises. We believe only in some good examples, good instances. If we hear from friends that everything went well, we will go there, and we don't trust agreements. I think with time the situation will improve. I have nothing to add. I think that these two answers were optimistic and the discussion was optimistic too. I wish Andrey and Christopher a lot of success in their business and a lot of success to our audience. Thank you for being with us until this very late hour. This is